What's going on, everyone? My name is Zach Marvin. In today's video, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a recap for my year of 2022 and my indie game development journey. Also, I'll be sharing a little bit of news with you towards the end of the video, so stick around for that. Today, I'm going to kind of just talk about my year and some of my thoughts on it, as well as share some news towards the end of the video. So we'll go ahead and get started. For 2022, it was a really solid year for indie game development for me. Made a lot of progress, learned a lot of things, got to make a lot of different types of games and prototypes and stuff. Really solid year overall, and I do think I improved as a game developer. My first project for 2022 was the Global Game Jam of 2022, and I created a game called Space Time. And throughout this video, I'm going to include clips and footage of these different games and things that I'm talking about as I talk about them. So I created a game called Space Time for the Global Game Jam of 2022, and the theme of that jam was duality. So I did the duality of space and time and how they interact with each other. The faster you go in real life, you have time dilation. So the faster you move through space, the slower time goes. So that was kind of the concept I went with. Created a spaceship that flies around on a planet and destroys little turrets that pop up and shoot back at you. So the faster you move, the slower time goes. So when you stop moving, all the bullets start coming at you, but then you got to accelerate to move out of the way of those bullets. But then time stops and you have to kind of weave through the bullets and shoot at these turrets. It was a really fun concept. Got to play with the time scale in Unity and got to experiment with 3Ds because I haven't really done too much 3D stuff before. So everything you're seeing in this game was 3D models made by me. And you'll notice in some of the footage there's a moon floating in the background as well as the sun, and these are actual orbits that are orbiting around the planet that you're on. It was just a fun way for me to experiment with 3D models and make a quick little game for the Game Jam. The next big thing, and you're probably aware of this if you're a subscriber, is I started on my first real release game, and that's going to be Nanoplanet. It's a top-down RPG. It's like akin to like Stardew Valley, but you're in space, and instead of taking care of a farm, you're taking care of a planet. I have a huge plot that's going behind it. I've made a ton of progress on it, but I actually started this up probably I think February or March of last year and created the Devlog 0, which was kind of just what the concept was for the game and some of the art that I had already drawn. And then I released 2 more devlogs where I added things like plant life cycles, weather, day and night cycles. I added a biodome that you can walk in and out of to take your spaceship or your spacesuit on and off. There's a character creation, save systems, inventory systems, and I got relatively far in that. I worked on it for a pretty solid 3 or 4 months, making really good progress. And then after I got quite a bit of progress done, I had to switch gears a little bit because I started attending an Xbox Game Studios game camp over the summer. And started focusing my attention on that. That was really interesting. I got to work with other creators, and I initially thought I'd be working with other developers who had a couple years of experience like I did. I was in 2 different teams, and both teams, pretty much everyone was relatively new to game development. That's fair because some of them were artists and musicians, so obviously they hadn't done much game development before. But it was really, really fun and really interesting and good to work with other people. We didn't get much done during the internship. We created a little prototype, kind of dialogue type game where you're presented with a dialogue and you have 1 or 2 options on whether you want to like save the planet or invest in like oil or something. So it was like, do you want to destroy the planet and make money, or do you want to try to save the planet, but you were the leader or the president of the planet basically, and you were trying to last as long as you could without getting vetoed out of that position. It was really fun, but I only got a small prototype in. I think just everyone was over the summer. Even though they were in the summer, a lot of my teammates were doing college classes and stuff and just didn't really have the time to contribute. So we didn't get very far along before the camp ended, but it was still a really neat opportunity to kind of meet up with some other creatives. After that, though, I ended up switching jobs and started working as a Unity developer out of a company out of California, working on some really cool like mapping applications and stuff. I can't get into too much detail because I have an NDA, but I got to mess with the Esri Game Engines SDK and kind of pull in some satellite imagery and stuff. It was a really fun project. I really liked it, and it really got me more versed in Unity, even more than I already was. So that was cool, but it took away time from my Nanoplanet project. And at this point, I had been outside of Nanoplanet for probably 2-ish months, and I just wasn't really feeling the motivation to get back into it. So I was trying to think, well, what do I want to do next? Well, I usually participate in 2 game jams every year. That's the Global Game Jam, which I already talked about, and then the GMTK Game Jam. And it was about time for the GMTK Game Jam, so I decided to participate in that game jam. And then I made another 3D game. The theme for that jam was Roll of the Dice. And I'd really been playing Rocket League recently, and I had been getting really into golf. So I was like, going into the jam, I was like, what if I combined Rocket League and golf and made like Rocket League golf? Once the theme came out with the rolling dice, I was like, how am I going to fit this in? And then I thought, well, instead of just getting 1 stroke per hit, why don't you get however many strokes the dice rolls to? So I created a golf course in 3D using Unity's terrain editor or terrain builder. And then I created a golf cart in Blender, and I drove the golf cart around, and you would hit a dice, and then there'd be a camera right above the dice looking down at it. And whatever the number of the dice landed on, that's how many strokes you gained for that hit. So it was a really fun way to incorporate the theme. And then something really cool that I did that I got a lot of positive feedback on was I connected all the holes on one giant like open world map. So you had to drive from hole 1 down to hole 2, down through the cart path, through the woods or the mountains or whatever. And I even allowed it where you could just like drive through the mountains and stuff and experience different stuff. That game's available on itch.io as well as my other Game Jam game. So if you want to check that out, definitely feel free to check it out there. There'll be a link to that in the description below. But that was a fun change of pace, and I really considered working on that game full time because I got a lot of feedback, and I think I finished in like the top 20 or 30% of the jam, which is pretty solid for me. And I've worked with a musician who is really, really cool guy. He made a lot of solid music for that jam. I think I didn't include one of his songs on accident, but he had some really solid music in there. And he's a really good guy, really nice to work with. I definitely can see myself working with him in the future. So me and him contemplated considering going forward with that game. I decided not to because I wasn't ready to commit to a full-on open world 3D physics-based game like that. I don't think it's up my alley yet. I wanted to focus on some solid 2D game first. But then I still wasn't having the motivation to work back on Nanoplanet. I couldn't figure out what it was, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I decided to work on a new game idea that came in my head. And I worked on this idea for a little over a month, and I'll show some footage of it here. But basically the concept is you're a Viking in a battleground, but you're not like Thor or some crazy super powerful Viking. You're just like a slightly above average Viking in a battleground of thousands of Vikings, and you have to battle your way through the battle. And if you win or lose, it doesn't matter. The campaign continues, and the campaign changes based off of whether you were able to win or lose the previous battles. And I had a lot of fun with this, reworking some AI, creating a lot of fun pixel art with it, and I got a really solid prototype in, and I got to a point where I was thinking maybe I should make it multiplayer. Maybe I need to convert the dots because I was getting some performance issues using Unity's regular game object system. And the project started expanding relatively quickly. So after about a month and I had a solid prototype and was thinking about increasing the scope, I decided, you know what, maybe instead of working on this again, I'll work on a new project. And I kind of came to a crossroads right here. I was like, all right, it's been a year. I've been working on Nanoplanet for 8 or 9 months, but I've really only actually worked on it for 2 or 3 months. Over the course of my game development career, I've never completed a full-on commercial project. I get projects to a certain point and then start giving up on them. So do I want to start a new project, continue working on the Vikings game, or start working on the golf cart golf game? Or maybe I want to go back to Nanoplanet. So it took about a week or 2 to really contemplate it, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't even do game development. Maybe I should just stop because I can't complete projects. But instead, what I decided to do was to double down on Nanoplanet, and I spent the last 3-ish months of the year really focusing on it. And at the end of my last devlog, I mentioned that there would be a demo available at my next devlog, and that's kind of why I've had 3 to 4 months of work since the last devlog and haven't posted my next one yet, because I'm trying to get that core gameplay loop in and have a full-on demo available when I release my next devlog, which, just so you know, should be like next week or possibly a week or two after that. I have like a couple bugs to fix, and then I want to create the Steam page before I post that, but it should be relatively soon. But yeah, so the last 3 months I was just hammering down, focusing on that. But so that was basically my year. So I did the Global Game Jam 2022 and created Space Time, which is on my itch.io, and then I worked on Nanoplanet for like 3 months and created like 3 devlogs for it. I did the Xbox Game Studios Game Camp for a couple months. I've switched a couple jobs since then. Some are Unity related, some aren't. And then I started working on the Viking game and Golf Cart Golf. And then I started working on Nanoplanet again. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've kind of stuck with Nanoplanet throughout the end of the year. And I think it was really solid. I've learned a ton of stuff in Unity and a ton of stuff in software development in general. And so I feel really motivated and prepared to see this game through to the end. The game developers are notoriously bad at giving release dates, but I would hope that this time next year, or December-ish 2023, I'll be pretty much done with my game, if not already released with it. Now this could change if I end up picking up a publisher, because then I'm going to want to make sure it's even more polished and have even more features. But if I'm just working without a publisher in my own time, I'm hoping maybe I'll finish it by this year. But I will be posting that next devlog soon. And I mentioned there would be some pretty surprising news or good news for me at the end of the video. And that news is I have a buddy of mine who is also doing software development and game development. And me and him are collaborating and creating a studio. Our first project's going to be like a 3 to 4 month project, just to kind of get into the rhythm of working with each other and seeing what we need to do to work together functionally and efficiently. But then we're going to go on and create some 3D multiplayer, kind of larger scope games, since there'll be 2 of us. And we're going to be creating them from our studio, which I haven't published the name to yet. We haven't completely decided on the studio name. So that's kind of what I did for 2022. My 2023 New Year's resolution is to be a lot more active on YouTube and other social medias. As of right now, my plan is to release a video weekly. Every Friday is probably what I'm going for. I think 90% of y'all haven't subscribed, so if you could, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out. And let me know what types of videos you want to see in the comments below. Also, what types of editing styles you like. Do you like the super edited ones like last week? Or do you like the medium level editing like my devlogs? Or do you kind of like these where it's more laid back and kind of Thomas Brush style, just talking into the camera and rambling about what I have to say? So let me know in the comments below. I look forward to talking to y'all next time, and happy coding.